So welcome, everybody, to the second hour of Mind Shifters Radio. Today is Wednesday, November the 3rd, 2021, and our call-in number is 563-999-3581, and press 1, and that puts you into queue to talk to us. We'd love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. We'll give Michael just a moment to get dialed in, and I'll direct you to our website, which is whyagain.org. And click on either the start here or the bullseye in the middle of the page. Both of those take you to the same place, and that is where you can find all the tools to get started, or if you're even familiar with the work, to help you clarify. There's PowerPoint presentations, there's all the worksheets, lots and lots of information. So put the tools to work in your life, and then we are here 5 days a week to support you with any questions that you may have. So let me see. So while we're waiting for him to dial in, that was an excellent worksheet, Ellen, and thank you for that example, and we appreciate your willingness to go through that. And so if you have questions, please call us. I was just checking to see if he was having some technical difficulties or anything. And so what's your questions? What can we support you with? Can we walk you through a worksheet the way that Dr. Tim just did with Ellen? Do you need support getting past stuck points? Also on the website there is a link, and it's for stuck places. And there's some common places where people do get stuck in the worksheet. And so those perhaps will help you to get past it as well. But we're here to walk you through it, and we would love to do that. So somebody press 1. Let us know what's going on for you. Let us know your process, your questions. If you have, if you don't agree with something even that we talk about, let us hear that as well. We always learn from each other, and we support each other, and so we're open to whatever you have to offer us. Let me see if Michael is in yet. No, he must be having some problems on his end. So someone press 1. Yesterday we were talking, I had worked with a young lady, and we switched worksheets in the middle of the worksheet. And even my supporting her in doing it, it was a good thing that we actually had split the session. So when she called back, I was able to offer that we were actually working on several things, like a hydra. And we've talked about that before, and how to get very specific on your goal, and then you would get clear on the result and see what was holding you back. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, dear heart, and welcome, everybody. I'm here. Are you hearing me, sweetie? I had trouble getting in.
Yep, you're on.
Cool. Well, as you talk about the Hydra, let's establish the reason why Hydra worksheets become so important and how these Hydras develop. And it's a thing we call the file folder effect. And the file folder effect says that when two files fire together in the mind, they link to each other. And when they link to each other, if one file is activated, every linked file also becomes activated. This is a really urgent principle to understand. And I use an example, and I haven't found an effective replacement for this yet for young people, but the way I demonstrate the file folder effect is at least this goes back years, and we're kind of in a new time frame, so it's not quite as applicable as it used to be, but most of our audience will understand it. So if I ask you what the Lone Ranger's horse's name was, what's the horse's name? If I were an audience of 100 people, probably 10 or 15 of those people would shout out, Trigger. 10 or 15 of those people would shout out, Tonto. Ask them to give me just an instant, first thing that comes to their mind. And then 10 or 15 or maybe 25 people would shout out, Trigger. The horse's name is Trigger. But what I did with that question was I resonated in each person's mind their file on old westerns. And, of course, Trigger and Tonto and Silver are all in there. And so it demonstrates how carbon-based memory, how perception works. Whatever's closest to the surface, whatever is amplified to the greatest extent becomes the mind's answer to everything, to anything. So if we link something in the mind to pain, let's say something that happened decades ago, linked to pain, and now here I am rolling along in my life 3 decades later, everything is just rocking along. I'm in a relationship and things are grand and great. And the person I'm in relationship with puts forward, let's say, it could be anything. I mean, it could be chocolate cookies. Geez, I was 4 years old and I stole a chocolate cookie and I got a beating for it. 50 years later, chocolate cookies come in the room. Chocolate cookies are suggested. In some way, shape, or form, chocolate cookies are resonated. And if I haven't broken that link, if I haven't resolved that painful experience from a 4-year-old, then that becomes part of the energy that is massaged into, literally, the unresolved pain of the child of 4 is massaged into the perceptual construct of carbon-based memory of the mind, and all of a sudden, there's pain for me. And if I'm with this new wonderful person that I've had awesome, wonderful, happy, joyous experiences with, the file folder effect, if I'm not conscious of what's going on in my mind, if I don't know how to go into my mind and remove trauma and pain, that trauma and pain now becomes linked to this person I'm in a relationship with decades later. If I'm not conscious, if I don't do anything about that at the moment that it's resonated, then it literally becomes part of what fires in me each time I'm with that person. The file folder effect. Just like, what's the Lone Ranger's horse's name? That person's there. It resonates, everything linked to it. If a week later, some other traumatic experience is resonated in the presence of that person, and a week later, still another, it comes to a point when we link all of these painful things up in our minds, and our mind uses that content from the past to form its construct of the moment, and it's connected in with that person. I might get to the point where, although there's nothing I can really point to that's quote-unquote wrong, I might get to the point where I start feeling uncomfortable around this person. It's like, what's wrong with them? And so I might throw that person out of my life, as maybe I've done with many other people over decades and decades. And relationships, if I never work through those issues, if I never allow myself to become conscious of the Hydra, and if you remember, the Hydra was the creature that in Greek mythology, when you cut her head off, several other heads appeared. Well, in the same way, if I start undoing one piece of painful, traumatic energy that's linked to any topic, a relationship, a friend, an enemy, a brother, a sister, a mother, a father, whatever, I can go off the deep end just by the mention of their name, or just by the thought of them, or just by walking by and with the corner of my eye catching a picture of them. That's all it can take. And the horrific trick that the mind plays is that it takes all of that file folder effect data, massages it, and transparently injects it into my brain's image of that person. And if I don't know any better, I can start to associate my pain with that person. And I will tend to grow further and further and further and further apart. So the file folder effect is really key to understand what it is that creates the "why is this happening to me again" experience. If you want a full explanation of this, read the whole book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And it's the whole story of that. And you can go to our website and you can download the book free. We can't sell you one because it's out of print, but you can go to Amazon or eBay if you like a printed book. You can print it yourself, of course, but you can go to Amazon or eBay, and they've always got used copies available fairly reasonably. But in essence, it's the whole book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And we're in the chapter on waking from the has-been, and this facing the Hydra effect, facing the file folder effect. It is a total product of the has-been, the topic that we've been reading about the last couple of days, and our subject today. And so rather than dragging the past into the present and thinking that the picture in our mind, that we've got eyes that show us what's happening out there, when nothing could be further from the truth. My offering is that everything that you see with your brain. You don't see with your eyes. People say, well, I saw that happen in the world. No, you have never, and I mean this totally, completely, literally, you have never seen anything happen in the world. An event happens. That event resonates brain cells. You do not have a set of windows that you look out called your eyes. It's a lie. I mean, the whole culture believes I see through my eyes. You don't see anything through your eyes. The eye, if we look at it scientifically, the eye is a receiving device for frequencies of light. It is a one-way valve. Information comes in. The information that comes in, if it resonates the file folder effect or the Hydra in us, we can think that this pain that I've experienced, why is this happening to me again, 87 different times with 42 different people, is the fault of this person that I think I'm looking at, and I'm not looking at them. I'm looking at a construct called perception of my mind, a body made up by my mind. Thinking that you can see out through your eye is like saying, well, I can go to the back of my television set, I can pull the antenna wires off, I can look up through the wires, and I can look out through the antenna. It's just ludicrous. It's silly when you think about it, but the whole world presumes we have eyes and we see. We don't. We have an antenna that brings in light frequencies, and according to what those light frequencies resonate, our brain produces a thing called perception. There's a powerful line in the Course in Miracles that says, perception is a world made up by you to take the place of what the Creator gave you in creation. And that's literal. All perception is false. All perception is from the has-been. What's the major feature of the has-been? Everything that's in it is from the past. And all the mind can do with its past is replicate whatever's there. Oh, yeah, depending. We could have a half a dozen different things going on, half a dozen different things resonating, and we get a whole new perception, a whole new construct in our mind. But that construct is a reflection of those 6 different major key energies that are resonating in us. And the major tool that we're working to have people understand and actually use, it's interesting how many people get excited about it, and when I ask them, how many worksheets have you done around that? Oh, they've got a question, and their answer is, well, I didn't think. That's usually the answer. Oh, I hadn't thought of that. If you're in pain, there is a disintegrative energy that's being transparently pushed into your perceptual constructs. And that painful energy is a reflection of something from the has-been, something from the past. And what we do is we replace the experience that is actually there in front of us, the energetic experience, with a construct of our mind that replicates whatever's in the has-been. And this propensity to live as though what your mind tells you is true has gone on for 1,000 generations in each of our bloodlines. And if you want to heal, you've got to be out of your mind. You've got to know how to get out of your mind. How do you get out of your mind? The master tool for being out of your mind. And at first, when you start to use it, the mind's output will only collapse for maybe a 20th of a second. But if you really pay attention, you'll get a taste of something. And if you really start to use the tools, you'll get to the point where perception from the past becomes a thing of the past. You remember Yeshua said, the dead bury the dead, the blind lead the blind. Those who live in perception are dead. There is no human life active in them because there is no life in the constructs of the mind. All there is a replication of whatever's in there. Life is love moving through a cell, not past perceptions moving through a cell. If we allow something from the past that was based in pain to take over option, then love moving through our cellular structure is inhibited. And we start to move toward death. If physiology is cut off from its proper power supply, which is love, if love is restricted, what restricts the movement of love within the cell? Hostility, fear, rage, guilt, grief, drama, and trauma of all sorts, sizes, and shapes. And if enough of that happens, then we say, oh, this body is aging and it's getting ready to die. Have you ever seen a dead man or a dead woman? Think about it. You have not. Have you ever seen a man or a woman? You've seen bodies. But are those bodies the beings? Take a moment. We've asked the question many times. Go back and remember the moment when you held a newborn child. And virtually every father and every mother I don't care what state they're in, but they start to light up when they think about, when they really allow themselves to contemplate and remember the first time they held their newborn. And their descriptor of the newborn is always the same. It is life. It is love moving through a structure. And you'll notice when you tap into your newborn that the newborn is not loving you. The newborn is love. The newborn is not loving you. The newborn is love. What did Yeshua say he came for? Did he say, I come to bring you religious dogma and religious doctrines so that you can form 35,000 sects of Christianity that all tell you that they have the right answer and nobody else does? Is that why I came here? No, he had a very simple, single statement. He said, I come to bring you life. And then take a look at all the instructions he gave about living as love and forgiving or removing what was unlike love. Forgiveness collapses the perceptual mind that reflects the file folder effect, that reflects the Hydra effect. It collapses that. It gives you direct access to the root energetic patterns. And this is not easy to do. This is not a Dr. Feel-Good process. You've got to go in there and be with it and feel it. But when you enter the practice of functioning as a human being, as love, and love is moving through yourself, that is, you have human life, and you allow yourself to tap into some old energetic file folder effect, trauma, then you begin the dissolution of the hydras. You begin the dissolution of the generational patterns. Remember that story about the Jews wandering in the desert? Now, if you think that's a literal story, I invite you to just contemplate for 1 minute. These people are lost in a 35 square mile area, and we're told they can't get out of there for 40 years. They're lost. Do you think these people were so stupid that they couldn't have gotten out of a 35 square mile area? For 40 years, they just wandered. You think they didn't know which way the sun came from and how to follow it from east to west? You think they didn't know how to get out of that desert? It's silly. But when you understand what they were really talking about, the desert is a code word for the unconscious. People living in perception, living in the foul folder effect, living in the hydra effect, thinking that the construct of their mind was true about somebody outside of them, when the real truth is your perceptual constructs inform you of only one thing. They inform you of the content of your own mind, your own carbon-based memory. They inform you of your own hydra effect. They inform you of what's in your filing system. So what did they say had to happen for that group of people to get out of the desert? They said the old generation had to die off. Now, that's been told as well. You know, the old people weren't allowed to go into the promised land. They had to die first. That's just bunk. That's just silliness. The root of the word generation is genari. It means cause. The cause is the foul folder effect. The hydra energies that reflect as pained perception have to be removed to get into the promised land. And what's the promised land? What does they say had to happen? The old generation. The root of the word generation is genari. It means cause. The old causes in the mind had to be removed. When they were, the diseases disappeared from the body. We got out of the has-been, and we started to function as human beings. Life more abundantly. Love flowing through a cell more continuously. There's work to be done. Because in you, in each and every one of us, is every hydra, every file that was ever instituted by anybody in our bloodline. If you're the early adopter of this work, then you've chosen to do a significant amount of work, and there is significant work to be done. It doesn't happen without effort. It doesn't happen without work. It is a lifelong process when you start realizing. You listen to that quote from the ancient scriptures that says, the sins of the fathers will be passed, yea, unto 3 and 4 generations. Now, the word sin is important to understand. It's got nothing to do with the Greek idea we've been fed in this culture about sin. It's simply an archery term. When you fired at the target and you missed the bullseye, the scorekeeper yelled sin. That's all sin is. What did they say? The sins of the fathers will be passed, yea, unto 3 and 4 generations of those who hate me. Did anybody tell you that you have every perceptual construct of every person in the last 4 generations of your bloodline? That is, you have every thought, every feeling, every perceptual quality that your forebears, 1, 2, 3, 4 generations, engaged in. That's at the root of the perceptual output of your mind. And of course, when you realize, where the 4th generation back get their perceptual constructs, but from the previous 4, who got them from the previous 4 generations, who got them from. What do they mean when they said the old generation has to die off? They mean to get out of the desert, to get out of unconscious perceptual constructs. You've got to begin to forgive, and the word forgive doesn't mean let somebody else off the hook for what's going on inside of you. The word forgive means remove. You've got to remove the hostility, the fear, the rage, the guilt, the things that inhibit the flow of life through you so that life can flow in you more abundantly and fulfill the purpose that the man came for. I come to bring you life. I come to bring you the direct experience of yourself as your created essence, love, and to show you how to remove everything that inhibits it. And they turned it into a religion, and it became a doctrine, it became a dogma, and billions of dollars are made every year, and billions of lives have been destroyed by that hogwash. Because if one, in the name of their religion, isn't being handled, the tools of Yeshua, they're involved in a religion about Yeshua instead of the religion of Yeshua. And in fact, it wasn't a religion. The man was a physicist. He was a physiologist. He was a geneticist. He was a psychologist. Literally, if you go back into the first century Aramaic language, you will find the very latest. I don't care who the scientists are. You will find everything the scientists are uncovering. Go into the cell biologist laboratory. Go into the nuclear medicine laboratory. Go study them all, and you'll find he knew it 2,000 years ago, and it's in his teaching. And they turned it into a religion. It's about uncovering your essential nature and your relationship with and as love, and removing everything that doesn't belong. It's about how to collapse the perceptual mind when it's filled with hostility and fear, instead of scream and rage and puke on somebody else, how to stop and go, oh, here I am again. My perception has pain in it. I think I'll stop puking on other people, and I think I'll actually step up and become an adult and take responsibility and remove this puke from myself. It takes great learning to do that. And then you're restored to exactly what Yeshua said he came for. Life, love, flowing through a cell. But you can't live in the has-been and have that. So we're talking to the character Richard, idea of the has-been, and looking at the idea that everything in the mind is from the past. And I had yesterday's reading, I'd given an example of giving a set of instructions, and it was a simple instructions. Put your right hand on your right ear. Richard's trying to figure out this thing of how perception works. So I offer him the example of, well, notice there's a whole room full of people and everybody's got their right hand in their right ear. But what if one person had a different past than everybody else in the room, and their mothers and fathers told them that their nose was an ear? What if that was the brain cells they had? When I said put your right hand on your right ear, what would somebody do? They'd put their right hand on their nose and think, oh, I've got my hand on my ear. It's kind of a silly example, but it makes the point. Literally, everything that comes from the mind is from the past. And if it's off track with truth, then we're stuck in the desert. We're stuck in that unconscious place. So we're trying to make that point with Richard. And then I offer him the thought, had I spoken my instructions in Chinese, so put your right hand on your right ear, would anyone have moved a hand? Well, only those who spoke Chinese. Otherwise, nothing from the past was triggered into anyone's mind by the words I spoke. Richard, put your right hand on your gizzard. Richard pauses a moment. I can't do that. I don't have one. But notice, though you have no gizzard, you still look through your past, your has-been, your mind, to check and see if there was a reality there that could give meaning to my words. No information, no brain cells. And, when I'm in front of a class, I'll do that again. So notice what you did. You went to your chest. You went to your throat. Gizzard. Chickens have a gizzard, but do I have one? Gee, I'm not sure. Searching through the past for meaning. Now, the mind is so instant, it really looks like that's not what's happening. But when you catch the mind at its game, the game changes. No information in brain cells, no past from which to gather a meaning. With no past, there is no reality to project onto my words. And so just watch how your mind operates. And is it really telling you the truth? Whether your mind gives you its meaning in an instant, as when I said put your right hand on your right ear, or whether there's a time delay, as in looking for your gizzard, every meaning from the mind is from the past. Every meaning is an individual reality triggered by my words and projected from inside your mind. The mind's meanings are all from the past. The mind, known as the great deceiver, subtly deceives us into thinking its information is truth. And what is happening now is the present. All thought, and I put the word thought in quotes, is from the past. And one of my favorite sayings about thought is if most people said what they thought, they'd be speechless. Because people think that cycling information in the mind is thinking. And I'd offer that cycling information in the mind is just that. It's cycling information in the mind. It's got absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with thinking. Thinking, I would offer, is the ability, no matter what's going on in your mind, to bring love, conscious, active, and present to your mind, new information, rather than being stuck in the cycles from the past. Being in the present moment, forgiving, collapsing the mind's perception, and being in the moment so that you can, from being, from love, you can bring new meanings to life and to your mind, and recognize that nothing from the past is true about the present. And if you're stuck in the past, thinking it's the present, then you've missed the gift. And the reason they call the present is because whenever you're there, there's a gift. We're here to support. We're here to learn ourselves on deeper and deeper levels every day. And to support learning that at every instant when being is awake and present within the mind, in the present, there is the presence of love. Everything else, as Dr. Tim likes to say, is a lie. It's just not true. And we've played this game of hostility and fear and rage and guilt and blame and drama for so long, it seems like there's really no option. What we're here to do is correct that. And so that's our reading from the Has-Been. We're on page 139 if you're following along in the book. Again, and I haven't read my book in over 20 years. We have the printed version. There's actually a new version that I wrote or edited and provided for our Swedish copy. And so that's the last time I've read the book, and that's about 20 years ago, or maybe even a little more. And as I'm reading it now again, this is the first time, and I'm going through it day by day, I'm really just myself comprehending the power of what's here and the value of spending time with this material. And to recognize that it's a reflection. It's not original with me, but it is a reflection of what we've decoded from the first century Aramaic teachings of Yeshua. Put it to work in your life is monumental, what it will do for you. Did I hear your voice, Jeannie?
Maybe it's
hello, Jeannie.
But you disappeared
totally.
No,
you're there. You're there,
but
honey.
I can't hear you. I can barely hear you. It's like you're in an echo.
I could barely hear you either. That's strange. If somebody would send you a text and let me know if we're coming across loud and clear. But strange. So, are you there now, sweetie?
Yes, I can hear you good now.
Good. Okay. Well, I'm not sure what that was all about because nothing's changed here. But in any event, do we have anybody there in the phone queue with a hand up or anything happening in the chat room?
No, it is all quiet. No hands up, no questions in the chat room. We have 23 minutes, so press 1.
So if you're out there in the in listener land, we invite you to push 1. and initiate a conversation with us. The objective, as Jeannie had said earlier, is dialogue. Monologue's over. It's your turn. What's on your mind? I can't imagine if I were in your hometown and said what I've just said. I'm on a platform at your local church or local library or whatever, that if you were in the audience when I came down from it, you wouldn't be walking over saying, well, but Michael, what about? So I'm here for the what about questions. That's what it's all about. So if you were in the audience, what would you be coming over and saying, Michael, I just have a quick question. What would your question be? And or what do you need support with? We're here to support you 100%. And so if you're out there in listener land, we've got, 22 minutes or so for conversation. So there's lots of room to process, to look at a worksheet, to do some work here. So please give us a shout. Push 1. Let's have a conversation. The call-in number, if you're on one of those stations where we can't see you, is 563-999-3581, 563-999-3581. If you dial that number, you'll be listening to the show. And if you push 1, we'll be having a conversation, and I would love to have a conversation with you. So 563-999-3581. Push 1. Let's have a conversation. So if you're out there, let's talk about it. How can we support you? I just saw that I got an email from Roma. Thank you, Roma. And yes, Hi-O Silver. That was Roy Rogers' horse and Silver, and of course the let's see, we got Trigger, Silver, and Tonto was the Indian's name, was Lone Ranger, the friend who was an Indian, Kimosabe. He called all that stuff's in my file on Old Westerns, but yeah. But they're the 3 answers. I mean, for years, they'd be the standard 3 answers that I would get by resonating somebody's file on Old Westerns. So thank you for that note. And anybody else out there in listener land, let's have a conversation. Today's the day.
Well, we could share the email that we got from a friend of ours who's been doing this work for a long time, and she had said that. So she had said, this is kind of long, but to share it, that it might help other people. She said, I'll kind of abbreviate some places. So she had gotten a divorce. Her husband had had an affair and ran off with the other woman. And so she, had to do a lot of work around what came up for her on him leaving and him cheating and all of that. Well, then she said she realizes that, everything is energy. And she realized that he couldn't stay in her space with her doing the work, that, her vitality level and energy was so much higher. And so he reverted to, other habits and seeking, outside relationships and things like that. But anyway, he was left, and she said she had to do a lot of work around it. And she recalls Michael talking about the willingness and the cosmic grace of the universe. And so she says she went on with her life after screaming and hollering for a while, knowing that total acceptance of what is would allow her to move out of her pain. She knew resistance created pain and certainly didn't want to hold on to that pain. It became a motivator for her to move on with her life and to let go. She started new things, like she got into theater in Branson and Springfield and doing commercials and different things and acting and was really immersed in that, and that helped her to let go of her need for her spouse to have been faithful and stayed. And then she goes on to say, she survived the divorce and she grew into a stronger person, and through the years learned more about moving out of codependence into interdependence, and learned more about the importance of taking care of her own needs. She had multiple health issues and was told that she had ALS. She moved to Arkansas to be closer to her daughter after selling her house. She lived in an apartment nearby while her handicap house was being built. She learned after much work that 7 neurologists were not correct, either that or with the help of her daughter and son-in-law and all of the work that she had done, that she actually cured the ALS. Anyway, it's hard to say without laughing because all I know is that it's all energy. I still have slight mobility issues due to the structural damage and have wheelchairs that I use often whenever there is nerve impingement or spinal spurs. Advance ahead. 5 years after she moved into her house, her ex-husband's wife, the one that he left her for, is diagnosed with ALS. They moved to Arkansas to be closer to her daughter and are having a house built just a couple of miles away from where she lives now. She hadn't seen him in years and only saw the woman one time when she confronted her after he got caught. Not only did she have the woman that he was married to now have ALS, it was diagnosed by one of the same doctors who told her she had ALS. They moved into the exact same apartment and rented from that she had rented from, and was using the exact same builder that she used to build her house, and they were building a house that would accommodate her wife's physical state. So she says,
what was the name of that book? Was that Why Is This Happening to Me Again?
Yeah, really. Said so they moved to the same state, they lived in the same apartment, they went to the same doctor, was diagnosed with ALS also, and hired the same builder. She says, I can't make this up. She says, somehow they're following in my footsteps. His wife, however, became worse, and she passed away in March of this year. She says, my daughter went to Branson and brought her dad back here to her house. So now the lady that's writing us this lives just across a field from her daughter. So now the ex-husband is living just across the field from her. He can barely function from grief. He decided to come out to my car to greet me when I took food over after his wife died. I got out of the car and gave him a hug and told him I was sorry for his loss. I gasped when I saw him because even though his tummy was now very large, I innately knew that he was severely malnourished. He lived with their daughter and started coming over every day on his walks. She just lived across the field. He came up and knocked on the door, and I invited him in. Shannon texted me since he was missing and wondered if I had seen him, and I told her he was sitting on my couch and was talking away. She said he never talked when he was over there. We were both shocked at his arrival. It became a daily thing for him to come over and share his grief. Looking back on those days, I lovingly refer to those when he was, and she gives a term, bat-ass crazy. He was in that stage for many months, and she would go back and tell their daughter, said, why is she so nice to me? The daughter asked her why she was so nice to him, knowing how I was treated by him and the enormous stress that they both went through when he left. My response was, he left me. I never left him. I love him, and I always will have love for him. I've been doing a great deal of inner work on forgiveness, and if I had never done that work for myself, I wouldn't be able to be the person that I am now, because I know that I would be full of anger. I teach forgiveness, and in order to be able to teach it, I have to know and understand the tremendous power of forgiveness. If I teach it, then I need to forgive within myself. We all tried to figure out where he could live. I'm going to fast forward. He bought a trailer and moved it onto the property, and then it started having issues, and he had to send it back to the people that manufactured it. And so in the meantime, he's sleeping on her couch, and she's cooking meals for him and doing all this. He has a male friend now that he has breakfast with twice a week, and he's become fully functioning. Within a couple months, he also found a female friend that he takes out occasionally, but he says she's just a friend. Last Friday, she just wrote this week, so last Friday his trailer was taken to the shop for repairs, and it was in worse shape, so he actually asked them to take it back and to give him a refund. So then he came back to her house and broke down after realizing all the issues that he was having with everything in his life. She was able to sit next to him and support him and ask him if he would be willing to do still point breathing. So my ex-husband, who lacks willingness to do any of this work, sat on the couch 2 nights ago doing still point breathing. He felt much better later. He's decided at this point, he knows who I am, and let me go forward. We've suspected he has early stages of dementia. The beauty of it all is that because of the work that I learned, I have no expectations. I'm not attached to his decision. I always hold love, and I'll be here for him as we work on getting him fully functional again. He and I watched 12 videos of regaining your brain, and he's learned that there's so much more that he needs to improve his brain. I know this is a long read, but it was an important story for me to tell because I want you to use the message of this story in a condensed version, of course, to share the power of love and forgiveness. I've always suspected that when all of the other happened when he left, was due to a head injury that he had had before. I know that the frontal cortex of the brain was damaged, and that's considered to be a traumatic brain injury, and the brain loses its ability to make rational decisions. I think his brain has been in trouble for many years. I'm going to be there to help him whether he lives here or not. So she has, after going through many years of drama and trauma about it, is now able to hold the space and help him to go through the process of healing. And so she wanted to share that with everyone.
Powerful. And an angry person listening to that will go, well, what kind of a fool is she? Why would she do that? Well, she's functioning as a human being. That's all. Remember, Yeshua, he comes out of the Garden of Gethsemane where he's gone through his major healing crisis, which would look like, from a naturopathic point of view, would look like sweating blood, which we're told is what he did. And he stands in front of the high priest servant who's going to have him mercilessly slaughtered. Peter, the head henchman, has whacked off this guy's ear with a sword. Yeshua, in essence, I'm going to give you the long version, what Yeshua said to him. Peter, we're here to function as human beings, not to function out of hostility and fear. If you live by the sword, and it doesn't matter what your sword is, whether it's your tongue or your mind or a physical instrument in your hand or a gun, whatever it is, that's how you're going to die. Literally, through the law of resonance, that's what's going to draw you to your death. And so what she's doing is functioning as a human being. And that, I'd offer, is the primary purpose of life, to develop a viable, conscious, spiritual body, because that's where eternal life lives. And I don't know, Jeannie, if she asked you for feedback on that, but there's one piece in it that I would suggest feeding back to her, that is probably another piece in her healing process around this, and that way back when they split, there was this attachment to his decisions. And if we listen to her regulatory speech, and this is just for anyone who's listening as a lesson on regulatory speech, as she says, and I'm not attached to what he does, or her words were, what's firing in brain cells is there's still some attachment stuff there to work out. And so you might feed back to her that that's probably going to be an important piece of work for her to do, to clean up everything around that relationship and in her mind. Yeah. So powerful. And, life without tools is quite literally hell. In fact, there's a section in the front of the book. If you, again, don't have a copy of it, grab it on eBay or Amazon. I don't know how much they are right now, $3, $4, $5. It's cheap, or grab it on our website. It's free. And you can get it there in any one of 7 or 8 different languages. But here's a section right on Roman numeral 20. To the left of chapter 1, the dilemma. Life without tools is sleep and hell. Information without tools is impotence. Power without tools is dictatorship. Relationship without tools is codependence. Knowledge without tools is dangerous. Commitment without tools is hopeless. Abundance without tools is loss. Health without tools is impossible. Learning without tools is chaos. Ambition without tools is corruption. A world without tools is war. Having tools and not using them is life without tools. And then the opposite, life with tools is awakening and delight. Information with tools is power. Power with tools is service. Relationship with tools is interdependence. Knowledge with tools is safety. Commitment with tools is a blessing. Abundance with tools is easy. Health with tools is natural. Learning with tools is education. Ambition with tools is accomplishment. A world with tools is peaceful. Having the tools and using them leads to aliveness. And so the purpose of our being here 5 days a week and carrying on this conversation for the last 10 years is to share these tools and these insights with you so that they become available to you in a practical, usable way. And the turnaround, when you realize that this multi-generational database called the Body-Mind Unit is such a massive database, and one of the reasons why it seems so difficult to get out of the patterns is because the major attribute of this massive database, like anything else that is massive, is inertia. You know, a battleship, I don't even know what hundreds of ton battleship is sailing down the ocean, under steam at speed. And the first attribute of it is inertia. The captain doesn't say, okay, we're going to turn around, and bingo, you turn around and go the other way. It might take hours to slow that ship down and begin its turn. In the same way, this multi-generational database has as its major attribute inertia. If you remember from physics class in high school, inertia says that a body moving in a particular direction at a particular rate of speed will tend to continue moving in that direction at that rate of speed unless acted upon by an outside force. And so there's an internal mechanism that's moving in that direction. The thing that set your and my mechanism in motion was our power persons in terms of the traumatic aspects of life. The thing that set our life in motion was love. If the inertia has not yet been fueled by love, then hostility and fear seem to be the norm for the mind. And it's time for us to let it go. What does letting it go look like? It looks like forgiveness. That's the technology. That's how it's done. And we're down to about 6 minutes, maybe 5. So we got time for a quick question. I mean, truly a quick question. If you're out there in listener land, push 1. Let's talk about it. How can we support you? What's on your mind? Calling number is 563-999-3581.
Got a hand
and
up.
Miss Jeannie, oh, great. I'm glad that happened because I was just going to call
904. 904, you're on the air.
Thank you very much. Well, aloha, Jeannie and Michael and everybody. Dusty.
Aloha, young man. How are you?
I am doing well, and I'll make this very quick because I know we'll blow up out of time here. But that reading you did, Jeannie, it was worth every word, and it reminded me of something that I only knew a little bit. Well, I knew it, but I didn't get it completely until I heard you reading that. This woman that went through this amazing thing. My parents, etc., did not have the tools. That simple. And I am quite inspired by that, and I've kind of decided to let today be a day of forgiveness in whatever areas that I can find that I need to clean up. I'm going to. Thank you.
Well, you've just affirmed, Dusty, that we fulfilled our purpose for today. So awesome. Thank you. That's the whole idea behind everything we're doing. And I love how, there are so many different ways to say it. If you go back over the last 10 years, really, we've never said anything different on the radio show for 10 years than what we said today, but it's got so many forms that it can open a mind. It's like kind of the combination of the safe for one person's mind is different than another, and it depends on the brain cells that we have, how to open it. And so I don't know if you've downloaded the app yet. If you go to your phone in your app store, Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness, or if you've used the pen and paper of the worksheet. But, forgiveness is nothing like anybody has ever taught us in this culture, period. It doesn't resemble anything we've ever been told about forgiveness. And so many people think they know what forgive. Oh, yeah, well, I'll just let them off the hook. If you haven't used the worksheet yet, please download it and put it to work. It's dramatic in its impact, and it is actual forgiveness. Nothing I have ever heard said about forgiveness in this culture, and I've looked at every form and fashion of it that I can. Before I finished my book, I went and sat for several days in I forget which bookstore it was, one of the big major bookstores, looking at everything that ministers and rabbis and psychologists have written about forgiveness. Nothing resembles anything we've ever been told. So if you haven't used the worksheet yet, please download it, put it to work, or download the app, and it'll shock you.
All righty then, yes. And thank you for that. And one quick thing, it's floundering, the word floundering came to me, that the power of people in my life just floundered. They were like a ship at sea with no rudder.
Exactly. And how's that impacted your life?
I still I have to super love them even more now.
Yeah. Well, we'll join you in holding the space, my friend, and we're down to the last few seconds. So, everybody, create the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world. Blessings. Bye-bye.